What's up, everyone? This is Jay High from Couch and Keyboard, and I'm trying to get back into doing some more traditional sports content. Last year, I did the best NBA teams of the century from 2000 to now, and I decided to try and do some other sports as well with that to kind of have some kind of comparisons. And yeah, now doing NFL. The Super Bowl was a few months ago, so it's a little bit out of date in terms of like freshness, but there's been no new seasons. We just had the draft and all that, so this could very well change. The more years have happened in the century, the more likely it's going to kind of middled out just because the averages are less powerful that way. But it is pretty interesting just to kind of see, like, okay, you think about Super Bowl wins, you think about who's the worst in the league, whatever, but like, who's been the best across the board about a quarter century, a little bit more, and it's pretty interesting from what I found. So here's kind of my methodology. I kind of borrowed this from my basketball video, and yeah, you can argue certain things here and there, but I feel like it's pretty reasonable. It has less spots compared to basketball, just because they only had two wild card spots, so only six teams made the postseason, and then you have the seventh being added not too long ago. But we do have 27 seasons. I did include, even though they call this season 1999, if the Super Bowl was played in 2000, I'm probably going to count it as 2000. So yeah, that could tweak things, and maybe one day I'll do like a video about like, okay, just the decade or whatever. But for now, I'm just going to do pretty much, I was born in '98. I don't really remember sports pre like 2005, but it's still something that I think is cool to look at, just like the modern era. And we have in last placed a pretty new team in terms of location, the Las Vegas Raiders. Moving from Oakland, um, there might be some fans that are kind of still left over, but I think about going from Oakland all the way down to Las Vegas. You don't have a lot of commonality there. They only have one playoff appearance in 6 seasons. Not very good. And they immediately lost there, average placing of 21st. So they are, in like the bottom 2/3 of the or bottom third of the league, like most of the time. So that's tough. But they just got the number one draft pick, so we'll see if they can at least rebound this back a little bit. And then kind of with them in the bottom, I have the Cleveland Browns. I had them a little bit higher just because they actually won a playoff game. They've had the full 27 to get this done, so maybe you don't want to reward that necessarily, but I don't know. I feel like it's something. 8 points, a worse average placing, but I do think getting a playoff win is a big deal. So I had them just above, but these two are pretty bad in terms of success. Some of the worst in American sports for the 21st century. And then we have, a little bit of a jump, getting to double digits. We have multiple different, 7 playoff appearances, not bad. Most of them one and outs, but much better in terms of average placing. Two playoff wins. They made the playoffs pretty recently, but they did have to play the Chiefs round one. That was kind of tough. But yeah, and they also got my guy Malik Willis playing for him now. It's very curious to see how that works out. But they've been a fairly popular team, being in division with a bunch of people in the Northeast and all that. They're a classic team with Dan Marino and all that, but they have not been that good. So then we have the Jaguars. Now a team that seems to be better than this, just because you know they had a really good year. Did lose to the Bills. That's tough. They even made it to the Final Four one of these years, but their average placing is not very good. They only have 20. This I have it to where third gets you 8 points. That's a big deal, but only making the playoffs 5 times, not that much. So I definitely think Jacksonville could go higher. I think they have a good core right now, but it is tough. Now we have the Detroit Lions. Recency bias makes this seem weird, but Yeah, I do have to think like they went winless not that long ago. They were really bad, and they've only made the playoffs 6 times in that time. Did make the Final Four. Also, they had the bye, but then lost to Washington, so that was really disappointing. Like they just seemed so good for like the past couple years. Not doing amazingly this past season, but still having a positive record. But they just didn't. I haven't made it very far. So while this is better than the Jaguars, not by much. Next, you have the Commanders. Speaking of, they're just just better in pretty much every way to the Lions. Also getting that one victory, getting an additional appearance and additional win in the playoffs, even getting to the Final Four, beating the Lions. So shout out to Commanders, definitely turning it around. They're more known by their other previous name, and probably for like the '90s and stuff. But they're starting to get back up there. So I'm very curious to see how they'll do. Then we have the Los Angeles Chargers. I think debating on how you want to frame this, they could be higher. They have a good average placing in the top half. They moved from San Diego to LA. While I wasn't quite aware how far that was for the Nets for basketball, they only moved like 15 miles. But from San Diego to LA I thought it was like 45 minutes. It's more like 2 hours in terms of, and not even including traffic. So I feel like that's not exactly the same like core base. I'm sure people still root for them. Maybe you feel betrayed, but I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a different team in terms of like all that. Their playoff score is 10, but only for 9 seasons. So over a point a season. That's pretty good. Only getting one playoff win though, so you could argue that being lower. Um, but I don't know. I feel like give them some more time to prove themselves either one way or another. They're the big if with Justin Herbert and all that, but we'll see. Arizona Cardinals. Now they had a pretty good run a few times. They got to the Super Bowl. The first time a team has done that so far on this list. But besides that, they're pretty bad. Like yeah, they've had some good runs here, getting 1 second, 1/3, 1/5. That's good. But only 5 appearances, only a playoff score of 28. Not that good. They've been a little bit hot and cold, and recently it's been a lot of cold, so we'll see. Oakland Raiders, much better than the Las Vegas variant so far. Got made into a Super Bowl early in the decade, century, whatever. And yeah, looking pretty similar to what we've seen from the Cardinals. You could argue, uh, yeah, I feel like this is like if you don't want to kind of give Oakland Raiders a pass for only having a few seasons, or like I guess like would that be 7 nights or whatever? I don't know. I think it's pretty close either way, but yeah, doing pretty good. More so earlier in the century, but still fine. Now you have the Jets. They are known for having the longest drought, and they did have some good results. Like they have made it pretty far. People love to make fun of Mark Sanchez. He did fine with them. You can argue that maybe it wasn't him. He was kind of benefiting off of his teammates, but it is what it is. And is this even playing? LOL, I didn't even play it. Might be. There's some music, but yeah. So a little bit higher, but not by much. Now we have the San Diego Chargers, a little bit better, having more playoff wins. Not necessarily that many appearances, but we do have pretty good. Just making it to a Final Four, average placing is pretty high. The LA Chargers actually have a better average placing, but I don't think like. I think it's cool to look at, and I think it's worth like okay, a team that's like in contention for playoffs compared to a team that's like worse in the league. I think there should be some weight there, but I don't know. I feel like playoff score probably means more to me just the more I've seen it. just kind of like quantifying, uh, you know, success across the playoffs, which is the most important part. But yeah, it's pretty similar. Both iterations. If you put them together, neither one would go up or down that much. Then you have the Houston Texans, the newest franchise in terms of like not moving, just they were brand new in the early 2000s, and they've done pretty good. They haven't made a Final Four yet, but they have done pretty good. Average placing top half, and a playoff score of 32 with a couple less seasons to work with, making it very commonly either with a bye or getting that win in round one. So impressive stuff there. Who knows if they'll be able to get to that top four, do that conference final or whatever. But now we have the Cowboys, definitely more known for earlier in their career, but and they've also haven't made a top four in this century, but they've made a lot of playoffs, 11 out of 27. Considering how people think how bad they are, that's actually not that bad, and getting a decent amount of second rounds, that's good. Definitely could be better. Definitely known for being better, but not too shabby. Now you have the Bengals. I think a lot of people they think about the Bengals in terms of like Joe Burrow's success beating the Chiefs, but recently not been that hot. They were also bad for a while. But yeah, I think that's having, even though their average placing is pretty bad. Like when they're bad. But their score is not too bad. 34 points. Gotta give props. Then you have the Chicago Bears. This seems low to me, but overall they just haven't been quite as consistent as some other teams. They made a playoff or a Super Bowl. That's probably the first Super Bowl I remember against the Colts. But yeah, didn't win it. Still did fine though. They've made it far a few times, but they've only made it 7 times. Recently, they're kind of high off their crazy victory against the Packers and really close game and all this kinds of stuff. Like they were a crazy team to watch. They definitely could turn this around, get into the top half average placing, maybe get another like top 4 or something like that. We'll have to see. Buffalo Bills. This also seems low, but I think it's been like they were really, really bad for most of the century, but Josh Allen and the gang has been turning it around. And, getting 9 playoff appearances, 2 of them in the top 4. Have not made a Super Bowl, and that's definitely kind of like weighing on Josh Allen's kind of like resume and legacy and all that. I think they're going to get it one of these times. This past year was definitely the opportunity for it, but it didn't work out. We'll see, though. I definitely think they could keep going up. Atlanta Falcons. Now, they are known for having the most embarrassing lead slip of a Super Bowl, but making it to the Super Bowl is very good. I don't want anyone to think that like you should have more ridicule for getting to the Super Bowl than not. Some of these teams have not even made it to the Super Bowl in a very long time, some ever. So I'm going to give props here, even though they're a division rival. I'm a big Panthers guy. I got to give them their flowers. And, they've made also 2 top 4s. That's pretty impressive. Even though they've only made it 8 times, they made the most of it. Most of them having, at least 1 win. So got to give props there. Then you have the Minnesota Vikings. They have not, been amazing recently. Definitely squandered some opportunities. Kind of in a weird spot right now with 9 and all that. But no, they had some good runs. They had some really good offense. And yeah, 3 top 4s, nothing to scoff at. Yeah, my Panthers. Now, and technically there's 35 teams just with the location change, so they're technically in the top half, which feels, I was like, I'm glad we're up here. I was hoping they'd be a little bit higher. Just thinking of 2 Super Bowls was very impressive, but only 8 playoff appearances. Recently doing very good against the Rams, barely losing in what would have been their second win against them. But yeah, It's fine. Uh, Not a good average placing. When they're bad, they're really bad. Which you can argue it's like, okay, if you're going to lose, might as well try and get a good draft pick to turn it around. Eh, I don't love tanking. But they also they made also a top four as well alongside that. The Super Bowl. I mean, I was huge on the Panthers. Cam Newton, they lost the Broncos. That was heartbreaker. I wasn't really that conscious of sports when it was the Patriots versus Panthers, but yeah. So that was disappointing, but we've had some good times. Kuechly, Steve Smith, Jonathan Stewart, Greg Olson. Now you got a lot of good guys as well with the modern roster. So a lot of stuff to look forward to with Bryce, with T Mac. Just a lot of good stuff happening. So here's to the future Panthers. We'll see how it goes. Titans, feels weird that they're up here. I was like, Titans, man, they've been butt cheeks, but they made a Super Bowl early in the century. They've also slightly done a little bit better than the Panthers. Made it 10 times. That's got to mean something. A bunch of top eights here. So good stuff to them. Then we have our first Super Bowl winner, St. Louis Rams. They haven't been that good they weren't that good just besides this win in the Super Bowl. If you take those out, which, I mean, those are very, very good, but besides that, it's abysmal. Even in a shorter sample size, that's still not very good. But hey, gotta get props. They did get the Super Bowl win, and they moved away. I was curious if St. Louis, if they were still rooting for the Rams, or if they kind of became Chiefs fans and all that. It's kind of a split bag. I think some people did become Chiefs fans, but they had a pretty interesting a fan base, and getting that win here was pretty impressive. So yeah, good stuff. Now the Saints, a division rival. I wouldn't say quite as much of a rival recently. They used to be, but they did have that Drew Brees Super Bowl win. Good stuff. Having a pretty good average placing. They haven't been very good recently, but getting some top fours, making 10 different playoffs. That's good. Next, we have the Giants, the Patriots Slayers. When they're bad, they're bad. Average placing of 17 is pretty abysmal. But, 9 appearances with 2 different wins and another Super Bowl appearance. That's really impressive. So, starting to get up here in the 50s, 60s, high 60s. We're starting to see a little bit of a jump. Next, we have the Denver Broncos, higher than the Giants, overtaking them just because they have one Super Bowl does not mean that you have to take it away. They've had a pretty good average placing here, being 14 and then tying in playoff score. I do think that it's enough to where the average placing is such a big gap. I think that the tie of playoff score should go to highest average placing, not just to whoever gets the most Super Bowls. I think that's a way you can look at it, but I don't know. I think that consistency here, having a lot of good success in the playoffs, I think that's worth something. I think that it's good to be. People might tease you if you make it 1-out or 1-1 in the playoffs, but that's better than getting like 27th. Let's be realistic here. It's good to make the playoffs. Now we have the 49ers. It's kind of weird to have them this high when they don't have a win, but they've been pretty good. 3 Super Bowl appearances, none of them wins, but that's a big deal. And then a lot of appearances in the Final Four as well. Not the best average placing, but I mean, when you go with some Super Bowl winners and they're still having this much of a bump in terms of playoff score, that's got to mean something. So, good stuff to the 49ers. Now we have the Rams, a bit of a lowering in terms of score, but they've only been there for 10 seasons, and they made the playoffs 7 times. That's really good. One of the best average placings across the league. Now, I don't want to reward them too much. They do have a win. They have another appearance, a 3rd place. They've been fine. Yeah, it's a little bit hard to know for sure just what the future is in store for them, but it's looking good. The McVay Rams are pretty good. So yeah, we'll see if it continues. I'm going to be a little bit optimistic here and leave them in the top 10, even though it's a bit of a downgrade in terms of playoff score. But they've had like less than half the time to get it, like barely more than a third. So good stuff to the Rams. But I won't give them too much higher just because I want to reward what's actually happened. And I think that other teams have felt more success. Next, we have the Buccaneers. They have a low score, a pretty big drop down from even the San Francisco 49ers. But, a little bit better average placing, 2 Super Bowl wins. I feel like, having 2 Super Bowl wins and having a decent amount of playoff appearances, that's pretty good. You can tweak some of these, but I don't know. I feel like getting 2 wins is less of you can't really like them and the Giants. It's good. And I think that the Buccaneers have been better than the Giants overall outside of that, but yeah. Next, we have the Colts. Only 1 win, but still very good. You have a little bit higher, and then I do think not having that Super Bowl win for the 49ers kind of hurts them, even though they have a higher playoff score. But also, Colts have a pretty good average placing. Top 12. That means that they make the playoffs more than they don't. That's a big deal. 16 playoff appearances out of 27 is a lot. Only 1 win, but they've been pretty consistent. I mean, 6 times they've been in the second round, and then 4 in the top 4 with a win and a appearance as well. So, gotta hand it to them. Next, we have the Packers. I feel like this is kind of like our next tier, just because the jump, you have a lot of people in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and you get to 100. That's crazy. Now, they've been a little bit of a wild card merchant recently, but that's still good. I think it's good to make the wild card, even if they don't always win when they get there. But 19 playoff appearances is crazy. That's like one of the most. And average placing in the single digits. A lot of top 4 finishes. Only 1 win, no second place here, but still very good. They've been a mainstay at the playoffs. You got to give them props. So yeah. Next, we have the Baltimore Ravens. They were kind of like my second team in a way growing up. I've been a little bit more dedicated to the Panthers recently, but the Ravens were a pretty cool team, and they still are. I think Lamar is doing some good stuff. A lot of appearances, a lot of second round exits here, but they do have 2 wins. Pretty notable wins. Also have some top 4s, average placing of just a little bit below the Packers, but they do have a little bit more in terms of success. They just made it. They've made it. They got a win. They just made it a little bit farther more often. Yeah, they have 3 less playoff appearances, but I do think that playoff score being a little bit higher is worth looking at. Next, we have the Seahawks, just 2 points above them. It's pretty close here. They have 2 wins, 2 Super Bowl losses, one of them being a heartbreaker, but most recent winner, that kind of eases it a little bit. 17 playoff appearances, they've been good. And they're a good team. I think they've been a pretty popular team just with the 12th man, all that kind of stuff. And Seattle sports are pretty, it's been a little rocky for them just in terms of like Mariners and all that kind of stuff. But, got to give credit to the Seahawks for kind of carrying that torch. So, yeah. Steelers, they are pretty good. My wife's team, none of them are satisfied about anything. With their coach being fired and all those kinds of stuff. And I know Aaron Rodgers, I wouldn't want him as a quarterback either. But yeah, they have 3 Super Bowl appearances, 2 of them being wins. And yeah, they made the playoffs 17 times, a little bit higher in terms of playoff score. They're tied with the Seahawks. I went by average placing. If you look at that, it's close. But I do think like they're better when they're not in the playoffs, I guess. Like they're more likely to be in contention. So I think that's worth considering. But yeah. Also, they have multiple third places. I do think getting like top four is a pretty good, so that kind of helps there. Next, you had the Chiefs. People probably think they should be two, but I don't think that, outside of a lot of their time, they haven't been very good. They were such a big underdog for a long time. Average placing being much lower than some of these other teams, being nearly 13. And like, yeah, they've had a really good times with Mahomes and Travis Kelsey and all these guys. But only 14 appearances compared to 17, 17, 16, 19. So it's a little bit of a drop off. So I think that it kind of makes up for that. Like, yeah, they seem to be a little bit of a jump up compared to some of these next tier of teams. But yeah, the 3 wins is good. Two Super Bowl appearances like that. That's definitely one of the best. Um, but yeah, they just, when you look at the full century, they have not been as good as they could have been. I do think they can make it back, and they can definitely get some progress going. But yeah, slightly above them recently, the team they've been kind of beefing with in terms of like Super Bowls going back and forth. You have the Eagles. The Eagles have made it 4 more times. They do have one less win, but I do think they have more top fours. Average placing is a little bit better. Actually, a lot better. Over two places better. Playoff scores a little bit higher. So even though people might think that you should go based off of Super Bowls, I do think if you look at the entire thing, I mean, they made the playoffs a ton with 2/3 of the time, and then a lot of times they make it through. Like, yeah, there's a bunch of ninth places. You can say that the Chiefs have made the playoffs, and lost immediately less, but they've also just made the playoffs less. I think it's better to make the playoffs and lose than not make the playoffs at all. And yeah, we all know it. The Patriots. 19 appearances with 6 wins, 4 second places, another 4 top 4s. That's incredible. Average placing of 8. I believe that's the best. Playoff score is, almost 100 higher than the rest. Even in a weak time where the Super Bowl, they didn't seem like they were very good last year, they still made it. They did the best they could have in the AFC. That's got to be worth something. And the legacy of Tom Brady, definitely very impressive. It's looking like my guy Drake May, shout out Myers Park down the road from me, growing up. But yeah, Patriots are gonna have this lead for a long time. They might even be in the lead for all of American sports. 6 wins will do it. Like the Lakers are close, but in terms of football, this is a pretty big gap. Yeah, Patriots are pretty good. Enough to where I think they're in their own tier. I kind of have, like, once you got to like 100, I feel like that was a pretty solid A tier here. And B, we have mostly the one-time winners. I threw in the St. Louis Rams as well. You also have the 49ers just for being a consistent Super Bowl appearance there. Then you have some people that have made it once. Here and there. San Diego Chargers, I think, is better than the LA variant. Oakland, I think, is better than Las Vegas. Some of these people, even Arizona made a Super Bowl. They didn't do very well outside of that. But yeah. And then bottom tier, bad teams, Browns and Raiders for Las Vegas. We'll see if Raiders can do good enough to actually kind of outpace the Browns. 8 points for 27 years, 2 points for 6 years. You can say that's a little bit better of a ratio for Raiders, but if you don't have a playoff win, I'm sorry. Like, I can only give you so much grace there. But yeah. So NFL is very lopsided. NBA was a lot closer. I'm going to do MLB, and then I'll also do hockey, NHL, once this season is over. My Canes not doing too hot. Lost their win streak from the, but we'll see. They at least made top 4. Hopefully they can break their conference finals curse. But hey, I'm glad my Panthers are at least like decent, because the Hornets / Bobcats were bottom tier. So shout out to the Panthers for at least lifting my spirits a little bit more. And yeah, fun stuff. I love sports.